Before this video gets underway, I just wanted to say big shoutouts over to Brett, xBrett16, Parm V, Perry, Cam Butters, Gus Chickens, Khalil the God, and everybody else that I had played NHL 22 with. This is the weird period of time when the NHL video game, the new one, is supposed to be released. Some people have it, other people don't. Some people have subscriptions that allow them to get it earlier, others don't. So I have to kind of hold on and try to use up all the extra gameplay I had of NHL 22 before the new game comes out and we start taking over videos with the 23 footage instead. I'm looking very much forward to playing Hockey Ultimate Team again this year online because last year I stopped playing due to the low amount of players. But either way, this is probably going to be the last video on the channel with NHL 22 online footage on it. It is a shell game with my buddies, my friends, that I hold very dearly to my heart, and we'll probably continue making videos with the superhero series gameplay in the background because I really do like that series, and I mean, it's cool seeing Superman score a whole bunch of goals, but either way, it's been a minute. Let's go out there and actually talk about the main topic of this video. Sorry for getting the entire gameplay update out of the way. I know a lot of people don't care about the gameplay, but I do think it's an important part to discuss on the channel. Let's talk about the NHL's 22-23 season and go over my predictions as to who's going to win the major awards. We're going over onto the NHL's website and taking a look at their NHL awards trophies and going from the bottom up as we talk about different awards and who can win them. We're going to skip over the NHL Foundation Award, the Bill Masterton Trophy, the Jim Gregory GM Trophy, as well as the Mark Messier Leadership Award. Actually, you know what? We can give the Jim Gregory GM of the Year Award to Brad Treliving already because, yeah, Calgary, what a great offseason they had. Let's go over to the William M. Jennings Trophy and talk about the award given to the goalkeeper, singular or plural, having played a minimum of 25 games for the team with the fewest goals scored against it, selected based on regular season play, and you know, it's tough not to go out there and say that Igor Shesterkin is going to do this because, I mean, he's really good, and I think he's probably going to win the Vezina, but if I had to choose a goaltender to have a really low goals against average, I have to think about the team in front of them as well, which is why for the Jennings, I sort of feel like the Calgary Flames and Jacob Markstrom have got this on lock. You could say that Freddie Anderson and the Hurricanes might go out there and do it again, especially since they have Brent Burns added to their decor, but I don't know, man. Something about the Flames. I feel like they've got this down. And Jacob Markstrom is good enough, definitely, I feel, to win this sort of award. So I'm putting my money on him. The Ted Lindsay Award is presented to the annual Most Outstanding Player in the NHL and is voted by the fellow members of the NHLPA. And if I had to choose who is going to be the most outstanding performer in the eyes of the players, I'm going to go out there and say that Auston Matthews, I mean, his reign of terror is not going to slow down in 2022-2023. I personally would like to see him get 50 goals in 50 games for real, as according to the NHL's own definition of that. I definitely wouldn't be surprised if Matthews got 50 goals in his first 50 games of the year, but he was so good last year, I feel like he's maybe even going to score 65 or 70 goals that, yeah, in my predictive world of what happens in NHL play in 22-23, Auston Matthews is winning the Lindsay. You go over to the King Clancy Trophy, and actually, you know what? I'm going to skip that one. That one's a little difficult to quantify. You go over to the Maurice Richard Trophy, most goals in the NHL. I'm going to say, yeah, Auston Matthews. I really don't know if there's going to be anybody challenging him for this award. I mean, realistically, you could say that there are other names that could enter the conversation. I mean, Patrick Laine is always a good bet, especially since Gaudreau is right there in Columbus. You still have Ovechkin, who might get 50 again because he gets 50 all the time. There are, of course, other names that come to mind. Kirill Kaprizov is a great goal scorer. Steven Stamkos has been really good the past few seasons, and of course, if Kucherov is healthy the whole time, that would certainly make Stammer's job easier. I don't think that Chris Kreider is going to have a horse in this race. I don't know, something about the 50 goals he had scored last year does not really feel to me like the most repeatable task in his arsenal. And then, of course, you have Leon Draisaitl that could go out there and potentially get 50 as well. I mean, he had 55 last year, so he's definitely in the running. But if I had to place money on it, I'm going Auston Matthews. I could realistically see somebody else taking over, maybe Laine with Gaudreau, maybe Ovi if you're lucky, maybe Draisaitl if you're lucky, and Connor McDavid decides to pull a Connor McDavid again. But Maurice Richard, I feel like that's going to be an Auston Matthews award. The Jack Adams goes to the Coach of the Year, and to be honest, the Coach of the Year usually is the one that outperforms expectations. If you're coaching Tampa, and Tampa does really well, you're probably not going to get the most votes because, I mean, you kind of just let them do what they needed to do. But there still are some other coaches, but it really depends on how team performance is going to go, so I'm not going to go out there and answer this one. If you want to go in the comments and let me know who you think is going to win the Jack Adams, and hey, be my guest for sure. Maybe Bruce, there it is, baby, if the Vancouver Canucks actually show up for a year. But going over to the next award, the Lady Byng is given to the player who is adjudged to have exhibited the best type of sportsmanship and gentlemanly conduct combined with a high standard of playing ability. You know, I'm going to go out there and not answer this one either because it's really circumstantial and somebody could really go out there and take over this conversation depending on what happens in the league. So, I mean, last year we had Connor, Spurgeon, and Slavan there, so maybe take your pick amongst those guys. If I had to pick who is really sportsman, though, I mean, we talk about guys like Bergeron, you talk about, I guess you could say, Giordano because of what happened during the free agent negotiations. Nathan McKinnon won 1 year, so we'll see how that conversation looks a year from now. Then you go over to the Selke. Now, this one's kind of interesting because for a while, we didn't know if Patrice Bergeron was coming back. Ultimately, we knew that he did, and he pretty much is the guy that's going to go out there and win this 9 times out of 10, or maybe not 9 times out of 10, maybe like 7 times out of 10. So, heading into this upcoming year, it really depends on who comes out to play. Mark Stone, hopefully he's able to come back and actually be what he is capable of being, so he's got a horse in this race if he is actually healthy. Lindholm of the Flames was there in the conversation last season. He's definitely a strong candidate, as is Barkov, of course. I will say, I feel like a lot of the Selke is reputation-based, so if a guy becomes what a lot of people would define as a two-way monster, it will take him a few years before he's actually entered into that conversation to get the award, but still, we'll see who emerges this season. Patrice Bergeron, I feel like, is the horse to beat, so I'm going to go out there and say him. As for the next award, the Art Ross, I really don't have any qualms about this one. It's going to be Connor, Jeffrey Dahmer, McDavid, because, yeah, it's Dahmer McDavid, especially playing on a top 6 that boasts the likes of other guys like Evander Kane, Zach Hyman, potentially Dylan Holloway, and then, of course, you have the Nuge and Draisaitl. If everything goes right and Evander Kane maybe gets, let's say, 35 or 40 goals on the year, Connor McDavid is probably going to go out there and have another 120-point year. And the guy had like 2 points a game in the playoffs too. Like, what more can you ask for out of this guy? So Connor McDavid is going to get the most points. Knock on wood, he stays healthy the entire year. Then you have yourselves the James Norris Memorial Trophy. This is where things get interesting because obviously Cale Makar, Adam Fox, these guys are front runners for the conversation year in and year out, but I'm actually going to go a little bit of a different route and say that with the Florida Panthers getting rid of Mackenzie Weegar and Jonathan Huberdeau and getting Tkachuk in return, I feel like it's really time for a guy like Aaron Ekblad to step up and fill in some huge shoes. Not to say that he's already a better player, but the Norris is given to the best defender of the year, so all you really need is one season where you absolutely go off. And you're not going to win it like Erik Karlsson did. But still, that's neither here nor there. I feel like Aaron Ekblad actually is a really big underrated candidate for the Norris this season. You could say other names. I'd seen Moritz Seider's name thrown around here and there. We're actually going to make a video about that because I think it was Sarah Sivian who wrote about how Seider could win the Norris this season. And then, of course, it is the Makars, the Foxes. Heck, maybe even Hedman comes back and he wins again, because Hedman has won that award a few times. Maybe Quinn Hughes really does show off in the 75, 80-point year that he's Norris contender-worthy. And Roman Josi, of course, from Nashville, is always a good bet to do well every season, so maybe he shows off the necessary chops to win the trophy, too. But I'm going to go Ekblad. I don't know, I might look like a total clown by the time this video is uploaded, maybe even by the end of next week, but still, I'm going to go with my gut. Vezina Trophy, next season, Igor Shesterkin is winning it again. I don't really have any reason to believe that a guy like Demko or a Markstrom or a Sorokin or a Hellebuck is going to go out there and dethrone who is currently the best goaltender in the entire NHL. Sure, I don't think Igor is going to have the same numbers as he did last year. I would not be surprised if he saw a little bit of a statistical decline. But he still was so above and beyond amazing last year over everybody that he kind of gets a little bit of free reign. Going over to the Calder Memorial Trophy for the Rookie of the Year, I'm going to go out there and say that Matty Beniers is going to take it. Owen Power seems to be the front runner here alongside of Mason McTavish, but I just can't shake off what Matty Beniers was able to do. He was under a point per game in a short stint last season, and he is so good already for a Seattle team that's begging for youthful talent like Beniers and Wright to take over the team for the long haul. So, Calder, I'm going to go Beniers. You go over to the Hart Memorial, the most important player, or most valuable player, excuse me. And I feel like it might be default for Connor McDavid to go out there and get it again, but I'm going to say Connor McDavid. You could say Matthews, especially if he goes out there and scores 65 or 70, but I think McDavid's caliber of play might actually take a little bit of a step up this year, especially with the top six that's around him. So, I'm going to say Connor McDavid's winning the Hart, and then when it comes to the Conn Smythe, it really depends on who wins the Stanley Cup. So, I mean, that's kind of circumstantial as well, so I'm going to leave that up to you. But Todd of the Con, say your thoughts about all my picks for NHL awards in this upcoming season. Obviously, we didn't talk about the Cup. We didn't talk about the Conn Smythe. We didn't talk about Coach of the Year, Most Sportsmanlike Player of the Year. So there are still some shoes to fill. But you can let me know in the comments all your thoughts about these awards and my picks on the ones that we talked about. I hope you enjoyed this video, Juraj 99, and bye.